Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Building Lego Hyrule Castle minifigure scale in real life but digitally first so that we don't make any mistakes. And this is week going to be 19. I can't believe we're getting so close now. And once again, we're here above the prison, one of our active sections, or should I say the lockup. In fact, even just underneath here you can see our lovely little Hinox. But we're not interested in him today, we're actually interested in what's going on top. For the longest time we've been putting this Technic frame and wall segment over what we've already seen, and last week we began with this framing here which goes all the way over the top and is looking rather flat now. That's because we haven't detailed this up yet. And following on from that, since last week, we've added a wall segment, which is a really big deal. Now, obviously, you're going to notice some similarities if you've been watching along for the whole time, where this is actually the same tower segment that we had all the way over here on the other side of the docks. Now, that is, of course, because lots of the architecture on the castle is identical. Of course, though, this will be textured up in a completely different way. You also notice that the wall is following the same pattern, at least as below down here, which has obviously undergone some renovations, also above the docks. We're taking a closer look at that later on today. However, what's more interesting here is, once again, we've laid down some tiles to get some curves right. Each wall segment's done by hand in order to make it look the best, and you'll notice that as we come down here, it lines up perfectly nicely with this wall. Now, one thing you might not be able to see is that this actually isn't doing very good. If we go inside this model here, we shall notice that there's a couple of collision errors on the inside, or at least specifically when I loaded it up into the test file, the collision here was not great. So it required some reworking, some rethinking about how we're going to rejoin these two sections together so that it is perfect, and obviously that they can be re-removed. Furthermore, over here on the inside, I've done a little bit more work with the grass and working out what's going to be covered, and more importantly to me is these set of lines here. So I can't remember if I showed you guys this in detail before in the past, but either way, just a reminder, this red line here is the continuation of the wall until it meets the blue, which is the cliff line that will be going up to the full height of this layer of plate work, which is this white tile here. So a very small slope that's going to be increasing. Now, this yellow line is meant to represent what happens on the outside. Now, on the real castle, what happens is that this is a grassy plain that slopes up to meet the full height. So this isn't a cliff, this is a slope, and this yellow line is going to mark between this yellow and blue one where my grass slope to get us up to full height, well, naturally one would say, is going to take place. So that's all laid out here for the future. However, to be honest, this wasn't really the main focus this week. I just wanted to get this more laid in so I knew what kind of space we were dealing with, because my priority today, at least, is going to be this slope here. So this is part of the switchback that we've been preparing for the last couple of months, and this switchback actually goes up and then actually goes straight over the docks cave. However, we're interested in it because it's going to keep us on our goal of providing the docks a roof. But before we get there and we take a look at how I'm going to link all these plates together, and it will make a lot more sense, I wanted to show you some of the flower work I've been doing and changes I've been making on a more detailed plate to show you just how luscious this build is going to be. So let's jump over there. Is Hyrule E1, which is obviously a name that none of you will necessarily remember, but it's a plate we've actually been to before. Now, what you'll remember here is that we placed a bench facing on this side of the wall, and actually the whole thing has gone under some changes, because what I mentioned is that the bench was facing directly this way, which is directly into a stone wall, which would have been absolutely no good. Why would you want to sit on a bench which just faces directly into a stone wall? No one does. It would be silly. So instead I changed its angle, and now you'd be looking, yeah, there'd be a wall here, but you get to look over all of the ships passing in and out of the docks, so it's sort of a seafront view. Now, I've already mentioned about partial lore for these things. So this path actually comes up from down below and continues up this way, but I wanted to make sure all these spaces had some use or some in-canon things, and this area, I've decided, is going to be a little bit of a nature reserve. So some of that involves is we've got a lot more wilder planting. It's not so many flowers, more thicker tall grasses, some shrubs and bushes. You could imagine maybe it's fruit or something. You've actually got a wallflower growing up behind, and then round here you've got this more meadowy area, which I'm going to be decorating with some taller grasses in the future as well. A couple of lush plants growing up against the side of the wall. There must be some good nutrients, and then some small pile of rocks. just trying to bring what is essentially a flat green plane to life. And I think one of the easiest ways to do that is by adding these little 3-stem pieces, the 5-stem pieces, and this wonderful little turly vine. So it'll be interesting to see what we can turn this into. And in fact, maybe we'll even add a picnic rug here as one as an Easter egg, but two, you could imagine that maybe some of the royal party or even guards on their day off get to spend some time out in these like public parks, as I'm going to call them. With so much greenery in the castle, it makes sense to have one of these. So here is the updated foliage for this one. As I said though, the main focus is on a really big lump of terrain. We're going to start the switchback today, and I can't wait to show you what I've already got done. It looks like a lot more progress than what I've really done here. But anyway, let's orientate ourselves. This is where we were just working. The E1 place with all of the new greenery in the nature reserve sits just here. You can see once again that if I lower my camera down, this is your bench view. Some lovely lush looks out to the sea, or should I say like the lake or river, as well as all of the open here for boats to come in. But that's not our main focus point, of course. Obviously the slope then continues up and goes round on the big plate we took a look at the beginning, and then joins us over here where we have our pond, followed by the new section. So this is a first level plate. You can sort of see the seam of the ground floor and what we call the first floor colloquially, and everything that I've added actually comes in here. So starting at the bottom, this plate has a green slope. Of course, this will be decorated with plants and the tiling as well to make it look like there's that rough little path going along here. You've also got all of the slopes that are going to be building up to this wall, and the switchback comes all the way along, just like the path below it, up until you reach this part where it flattens out here. And this is actually the level on which there's another fortification, which we'll be working on soon. This one's an archway one, so it's actually a brand new design that I'm going to have to come up with that you can go through. So it's another wall segment up here. We've got to like flatten out all of this, find a suitable height. And actually, as you can see, we worked on A1 a couple of weeks ago here, which involved capping off the first floor level and what height that was going to be. And you can see that my new segment over here is actually almost at full height. We're about halfway there. So by the time I put a fortification on top of this, we'll be looking pretty much at the next level completed, at least for this small segment. So as far as the Technic frame that this is resting on, this one actually goes up until the ending here, which will be just before the pond and other features. And it's actually all one big piece up until the edge of the wall segment here. As you guys know, the wall here is one big chunk, like so. And then everything else is this new piece, which is sitting above the dock's entrance, and then what will be obviously filler brick and so on the plates below. The stuff like the lockup and other rooms don't extend this far, and obviously the closing off for the docks rests along here. Obviously we've limited it so that it doesn't get too overwhelming in a studio file. But you can see that this plate's actually designed to rest on top of the A1 plate, as you can see by this loose stuff here, and then it makes a nice flush join. In fact, if I undo it, you can barely tell the difference up here. So that was an interesting challenge to try and blend these two sections together. You can then also see that above the cave entrance we've got a couple of platforms. Now these still need to be, this one here needs to be decorated like these above. These are like rubble filled little shelves. There's no greenery up there. They're just little like places where you can actually rest during climbing in the game. And of course they're just like sort of etchings into the rock that don't serve much purpose as far as I'm concerned when it comes to the pre-calamity version of this castle. You can see though that it's made some interesting depths, and don't worry, I've now realised that of course I need to actually make a couple of these style platforms up above A1 as well, so I'll be doing that in the coming weeks. We're going to sort of bust a hole in and just add a platform or so. But the most, I think, exciting part of this one entirely is of course the slope. You can see that surrounding the Technic frame I did use a couple more sideways rockwork techniques just to vary it up a little bit. I think it does make it a little bit more obvious, but it does add some variation from all the slopes, which of course is just fantastic. And I can't wait to see how this looks actually when this whole segment is tiled off and even, as this will be a really impressive and now quite tall view, especially if I can get the rest of the slope and all the other bits we've been working on, like the pond and the lockup in here as well. I'm super excited to see this start to spread around to the side with the West Passage and so on, which is something that my eye is very quickly moving towards. You can see, of course, all the techniques are the same, and the elevation is pretty spectacular given how fast it rises. Most of it's only one plate per stud rising, however there are a couple of twos as we started to get short, and this corner is quite interesting as it's quite a steep curve on the inside but quite a shallow but longer curve on the outside. making a really like natural looking cliff shape, I think, from at least from my opinion, as long as you don't look at it straight on, of course, and you can get the blocky nature. But it's really cool to be able to see this green path snaking up, especially given how much grey there is. It's just bringing that colour balance back in just ever so slightly, and obviously that will improve when we have all the green over here as well, and obviously more green and olive green and so on as we go up towards the sanctum and so on, and then obviously the massive light grey blob that is the sanctum on the top as well. So super excited about that as well. Still wondering how we're going to do the sanctum, but it's so far off it doesn't matter. But that's pretty much all I have to show you for today. It was just a lot of hard work to get all of the rock work and the technique, and actually surprisingly building these slopes is quite difficult because you have to build the slope, then go back and build the support network underneath, as you can see here, and it's never quite perfect, it's never quite simple, and then obviously you've got to adjust the rock works to the right height, and then work out what the rough height is based off like the plates and stuff that I've been given and so on. But either way, it's great progress. It's nice to finally see a substantial chunk of elevation go on, as a lot of what we've been doing the last couple of weeks is just adding like flat frames and roofs and things, or copy and pasting things. Obviously we still need to texture the wall, decorate up that other panel. It's a little tricky when we don't have anything else around it, so I think we'll leave that for now and we'll move on to more exciting things like this archway and getting this stuff fixed up, as well as moving on towards the West Passage. So let me know what you think. It's nice to see some more height grow into this model. A little bit of a filler update, I guess, but wanted to keep you guys in touch of what I've been doing on this model, and I will see you again very soon. Bye bye.